So it's September, and that means football season. But it's also an indication that fall is right around the corner. So let's make some apple cider donuts with a twist. Come on, let's get started.
Todo queda sabroso.
So fall is by far my most favorite season. It's perfect weather. I'm originally from Jersey, and every fall we will go to an orchard to pick apples, pick pumpkins, and to eat apple cider donuts. But of course, you know, we had to put a little twist. So we're making apple cider donuts with a Dulce de Leche glaze. Oh, I can't wait. Come on, let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the label off of the sweetened condensed milk, because we're going to immerse this in water. Then you're going to get a pot where you're going to drop the sweetened condensed milk into that water and make sure that that water is at least 2 inches above the can. We're going to cover it with a lid and we're going to simmer it for about 2 to 3 hours, depending on how thick you want the dulce de leche. Okay, now we're going to begin the dough for the apple cider donuts. But before we do that, we need to take our apple cider. We're going to add 2 cups of the apple cider. And then to that, even though we're going to add cinnamon to the dry mixture, I want to add a cinnamon stick and also a star anise. Kind of complement the dulce de leche glaze. I have piloncillo, which is a brown sugar cane. I have about 2 ounces here that I'm just going to add. And I'm going to heat this mixture until it's reduced to a half a cup. Okay, so in this bowl, I have 3.5 cups of flour. To that, I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, half teaspoon of baking soda. Since I use cinnamon sticks in the apple cider mixture, I'm only adding a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And then I'm going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of fresh nutmeg. Now let's add our wet ingredients. Okay, so here we have apple cider that has been reduced to about half a cup. And while it's still hot, I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And we're going to whisk that until it's melted. My butter is melted. We're going to add half a cup of firmly packed brown sugar. Mix that. We're also adding half a cup of applesauce. This is not only going to add more apple flavor, but it's also going to help in the texture of the donuts. Mix that in. Now, it usually calls for some buttermilk, but you can substitute sour cream, or in our case, we're going to substitute crema. Crema is perfect because it's a cross between sour cream and buttermilk. It has the taste of sour cream, but the consistency of buttermilk. And so we're going to add 1/3 cup of that crema. Mix that in. I'm also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Then lastly, we're going to add 2 eggs. I made sure that this mixture was cooled down before I added the eggs. Okay, there we have our wet mixture. Now let's add it to our dry. Then with the rubber spatula, we're just going to mix this until it's just combined. You don't want to overmix this dough. Now I will tell you, as you're mixing, you're going to notice that the dough is rather wet or sticky. That's totally fine. Then we're going to take this mixture, cover it with plastic wrap, and then place it in the refrigerator for about an hour. So let's prepare our dulce de leche glaze. Okay, so here I have the can of condensed milk that was cooking for about 2 hours. That's going to give me a nice caramelly look and flavor. You can go a little bit darker by adding another hour, so about 3 hours. But I think 2 hours is perfect for what I'm doing. So as we open it up, you can see that beautiful dulce de leche caramel. Ooh, tastes delicious. So we're gonna pour it out into a bowl. And then I'm going to add something that you might think I'm crazy, but I'm adding a half a cup of powdered sugar. Now you may be saying to yourself, Chef, why are we adding more sugar to something that is already sweet? The dulce de leche is more transparent and I don't want that. I want it more opaque, so that powdered sugar is going to achieve that for me. And then I'm adding about a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons of heavy cream, just to get this mixture to the consistency of where I want it. And so our dulce de leche glaze is ready to go. Okay, so our dough has been resting for about 1.5 hours, and now we're going to take some flour on our countertop, and then with the use of a pastry scraper, pour out that dough onto our countertop. Then we're going to place some flour on top. You want to press that dough down. I'm going to take a rolling pin, kind of roll that dough out. We want about 1/2 inch thickness, seems about right. Then we're going to take our cookie cutter. This actually comes in a tin with various sizes, 12 to be exact, up to 4 inches, I believe. It costs about $8. I'll actually leave a link in the description if you want to check it out. Then we're going to take this cookie cutter and dip it into some flour so that it doesn't stick as we're cutting our donuts. Just like so. After every cut, dip it back into the flour. Like that. Then we're going to take each donut and place it on parchment paper. Okay, so you should get anywhere between 10 to 12 donuts. Then we're going to take a smaller cookie cutter and we're going to cut out our holes. Don't forget to flour that as well. Okay, now we're going to place this in the refrigerator until we prepare our oil. Make sure that when you cut your donuts, 2 things to be very successful. Make sure they're not more than 1/2 inch thick, and make sure you don't cut them too big. I found that if they're too thick and if they're too big, you're gonna have uncooked dough and you're gonna have donuts that fall apart. You see how there's flour still on the donuts? Give that a good brush, because if you have caked on flour, what'll happen is when that hits the oil, it'll actually flake up and you don't want that. Okay, our donuts are about 350, exactly where we want it. Now we're gonna take our donuts and put them right into the oil. I'm gonna add 4 at a time. And then don't walk away, because these are going to be done fairly quickly, 30 to 45 minutes on each side. Okay, then we're gonna give them a quick flip, just like that. Okay, then we're going to remove them and put them on a wire rack, like that. And then repeat with the remaining donuts. Okay. Now it's time to glaze. We have our dulce de leche glaze. We have our apple cider donuts, and they look wonderful. We're just going to take one of those donuts and just dip it right into that dulce de leche. Oh my, look at that. Okay, so the other donuts are in the freezer for like a minute just to cool down that glaze, because I want to double dip it. But I just took one and I just coated it in the traditional cinnamon sugar just to show you the inside. Look at that. Come on, y'all. Okay, so the last thing I would like to do is add some fleur de sel. It's a finishing salt, and I just like to hit it with a little bit of that fleur de sel. And here we have our dulce de leche glazed apple cider donut.
Sabroso.